These cops investigated crimes like they were in a slapstick comedy. Big Bro, disguised as a fishing enthusiast, got dragged along by his teammates. A fish took the bait, and he refused to budge no matter what. Number 2 and Number 3, disguised as lovers, got their cover blown by a string of decorative lights, almost blowing their operation entirely. Their last hope, Jang Tan-sik, dramatically pulled out his taser and pointed it at the suspect's face, only to be shoved. The taser discharged, zapping him instead. Seeing the suspect flee on a bicycle, Min Seo and Jung Hwan gave chase on a tandem bike. They were this close to catching him. Min Seo yelled and pedaled with all her might, but Jung Hwan, perched precariously on the back without a cushion, took a tumble, landing squarely on his rear. He scrambled to get up, terrified of impaling himself. But the bumpy road ensured he wouldn't escape the pain. Their pursuit ended in pathetic failure. At this point, Big Bro Jung Ryok joined the chase, also on a bike. He caught up to the suspect and toyed with him like a cat with a mouse, but his amusement was short-lived. They approached a downhill slope, and the speed picked up. Unable to locate the brakes, Jung Ryok zoomed off into the distance, watched by the bewildered suspect. Another operation bites the dust. Their team leader, held responsible, got transferred to a coastal post, exposed to the elements day in and day out. The 4 rookie cops got assigned to a deserted kindergarten. The hot-headed Min Seo, furious at being put out to pasture, threw a fit. Jung Ryok and Jung Hwan were equally disgruntled. Only the goofy Tan-sik seemed oblivious, fascinated by a squeaky toy chicken making outdated noises. The 3 reviewed the reasons for their latest failure. Finally, they accepted their reality, cleaned up an office area, and officially started work. Shortly after, they received a call about a case in their jurisdiction. Tan-sik answered, relaying the caller's request for a detective. He stared blankly at his 3 teammates before realizing he was the detective. Jung Ryok and Tan-sik arrived at the supposed crime scene. Entering the room, they found a puddle of what looked like blood under the victim and a general mess. Tan-sik, mustering his courage, collected a white substance from the victim's mouth. Just then, the victim grabbed his hand. Thinking he'd encountered a ghost, Tan-sik bolted out of the room in terror. The victim chased after them, demanding to know why they broke in. A call from Jung Hwan informed Jung Ryok they were at the wrong address. They finally noticed the scattered bottles of Banju wine they'd mistaken for spilled ketchup. Mortified, they rushed to the correct location indicated in the supposed suicide note. The actual crime scene was devoid of any evidence. Just as they were about to prematurely close the case, a bespectacled man in the crowd questioned their judgment. Indignant at being challenged, Jung Ryok demanded to know who he was and what he wanted. The man introduced himself as their new team leader, Yoo Bin, 37 years old, from a prominent family, and with an impressive track record of solving crimes. He was a rising star in the police force, featured in promotional videos. Not only did he hold a doctorate from the New York Academy, but he was also an honorary distinguished FBI agent. Despite his stellar resume, Yoo Bin ignored his superior's advice and insisted on transferring to their homicide unit. Little did he know he'd be leading a team of bumbling fools. While the others were still reeling from Yoo Bin's introduction, Jung Hwan immediately bowed and welcomed their new leader. Ironically, just yesterday, he'd been brown-nosing Jung Ryok, the senior officer and, by age, the expected candidate for the team leader position. Yoo Bin led the team to re-examine the crime scene. He picked up the victim's suicide note and compared it to a sheet of paper from the printer, discovering a difference in weight. This proved the note wasn't written on paper from the victim's house, suggesting it might be forged. Yoo Bin decided to investigate the victim's company. The victim was a star manager with close ties to the actor Jang he managed, making the actor a person of interest. None of the 4 wanted to go, but Yoo Bin employed some psychological tactics, singling them out until Min Seo, with a spirit of self-sacrifice for her team, volunteered. At the agency, Yoo Bin deduced the company representative was left-handed based on the placement of cups on his desk. He also correctly guessed the representative's recent travels based on items in the room. Initially dismissive, Min Seo found herself increasingly impressed as the representative's explanations matched Yoo Bin's deductions perfectly. Meanwhile, Jung Ryok and Jung Hwan tracked down a young man who had entered the victim's home. Eager to take credit, they went behind their leader's back. While the suspect was inside a convenience store, they flashed their badges and ordered him to surrender. The suspect dodged them and sprayed them with a fire extinguisher. Engulfed in the white cloud, Jung Hwan hallucinated, believing he was under fire on a battlefield. Jung Ryok snapped him back to reality. After confirming Jung Hwan was okay, Jung Ryok tackled the suspect against a glass door and successfully brought him to the station. Only then did they report to Yoo Bin. Reviewing the information, Yoo Bin noticed the suspect entered the victim's house on a different day than the murder, ruling him out as a suspect. Jung Ryok, trusting his gut, insisted the man was involved. He personally interrogated the suspect, pretending to type the suspect's statement into the computer with one finger. His typing skills, however, were lacking, so he handed the keyboard to the suspect to type it himself. The roles reversed, with the lines blurring between interrogator and interrogated. After a roundabout interrogation, the suspect provided a solid alibi and was cleared. Jung Ryok had wasted a whole day. Ultimately, actor Jang, managed by the victim, was also cleared of suspicion. With all other leads exhausted, the case reached a dead end. The four again suspected it wasn't murder, but the team leader disagreed. Jung Ryok sarcastically remarked that their leader was all talk and no action, never getting his hands dirty at the scene. Jung Hwan chimed in, dismissing Yoo Bin's American education as mere window dressing. Yoo Bin informed them the case had been leaked to the press, with news spreading about actor Jang allegedly bullying the manager, leading to the tragedy. He suspected someone had tipped off a reporter. Jung Ryok defensively retorted that they were experienced and wouldn't leak information. Moments later, the shop owner's mother-in-law inquired if they were discussing the manager's death. Jung Ryok denied saying anything, but the old woman pointed out he'd mentioned finding a suicide note at the scene. Jung Ryok was caught red-handed. Yoo Bin seized the opportunity to warn him about loose lips. Back at the station, a throng of reporters awaited them. Spotting them, Yoo Bin dashed inside, slamming the door shut to create a diversion. Jung Hwan told the reporters Jung Ryok was the team leader. While Jung Ryok was swarmed, Jung Hwan slipped inside. Later, Tan Sik received the autopsy report from the National Forensic Service and delivered it to Yoo Bin. After reviewing the report, Yoo Bin officially declared the case a homicide. The coroner had found poison in the victim's system. Yoo Bin visited the victim's home. Based on the layout, he theorized that after poisoning the victim, the perpetrator intended to drag the body into a room but stopped midway for some unknown reason. He couldn't explain why. Back at the station, Yoo Bin and Min Seo set out to inform the victim's family about the reclassification of the case. En route, they received news of actor Jang's death. They rushed back to the station. Min Seo played a viral video showing actor Jang furiously berating his manager. The video had been released at 11 p.m. the previous night, while Jang died at 3 a.m., suggesting he was driven to extremes after the video leak. Min Seo projected an image of Jang's apartment. Suddenly, her stylus pen fell, inadvertently displaying her incoming messages on the large screen. A message from a friend invited her to the 35th matchmaking party that evening, urging her to escape singlehood. Another message from her doctor's office reminded her to seek medical attention for her 5-day-long constipation. The four men stared at Min Seo as she retrieved her pen, oblivious to her exposed secrets. She even requested to join the investigation at the scene, but Yoo Bin refused. Yoo Bin and Jung Hwan arrived at Jang's apartment. Yoo Bin noticed the completely unused balcony, suspecting Jang had a fear of heights. Jung Hwan was puzzled why someone with acrophobia would live on the 47th floor. The visit yielded no useful information. Yoo Bin told Jung Hwan to leave. He wanted to stay and watch a TV show about to air, claiming he wouldn't make it home in time. Jung Hwan was bewildered by his team leader's priorities. Downstairs, Jung Hwan received a call from Jung Ryok and Min Seo. They had identified a suspect and summoned him to join their operation. The three staked out the suspect in their car, but accidentally turned on the headlights. As they scrambled to turn them off, they saw the suspect's face pressed against the car window, staring at them. The three jumped out and gave chase, Min Seo ultimately apprehending him with her taser. Meanwhile, Yoo Bin, finished with his show, was about to leave when he discovered a small fragment under the coffee table. Back at the station, the trio brought in their suspect. They arrested him because he had stayed at the victim's house and borrowed money. suspecting he killed the victim over an unpaid debt. However, their investigation revealed he only borrowed 1 million won, with 100,000 won being a gift certificate. Yoo Bin asserted this man wasn't the killer, criticizing Jung Ryuk for making an arrest without reporting it. He warned of severe consequences for future reckless actions. Yoo Bin tasked Young Hwan with contacting the agency representative's former secretary, who had resigned 6 months prior, urging him to reach her as soon as possible. Young Hwan quickly located the secretary. She had worked with the representative since the company's inception, but recently resigned due to disagreements about his business practices. Yoo Bin asked if actor Jang and the representative were as close as brothers. The secretary replied they were only brothers in name. She revealed that after Jang's rise to fame, the representative exploited him for recruitment purposes. However, Jang planned to break his contract and join another agency. The company relied heavily on Jang's popularity, so his departure would be a devastating blow to the representative. After sharing everything she knew, the secretary made a request. She agreed to cooperate with the investigation out of respect for Jung Ryuk, on the condition that he take her out for a meal after the case was closed. After hearing this, Yoo Bin ordered Jung Ryuk and Young Ryuk to visit the agency that actor Jang was planning to move to and investigate the situation. Yoo Bin and Min Seo then went to question the agency's representative. The representative claimed he and Jang were like brothers. He said that the day before Jang died, Jang had invited him for drinks, but he declined because he was taking supplements. Now, he was filled with regret. Had he known, he definitely would have gone to see Jang one last time. Leaving the agency, Min Seo believed the representative and Jang were close friends from a young age. The representative had cried mournfully, clearly devastated by the loss. Yoo Bin, however, had a different perspective. The representative had said he hadn't been eating much since Jang's death, but Yoo Bin noticed soy sauce stains on his sleeve. He deduced that the representative had eaten sushi with his left hand. The representative's breath also smelled of mint, likely from the free mints at the sushi restaurant. Later, Yoo Bin and Min Seo went to see a movie. Min Seo misinterpreted Yoo Bin's intentions, especially when he mentioned in the theater that he didn't want to hide his feelings. Flustered and contemplating a response, Min Seo was interrupted when Yoo Bin abruptly stood up, claiming he needed to use the restroom. Min Seo waited 2 hours for Yoo Bin to return. Back at the police station, she told the others that the captain was severely constipated. Just then, Yoo Bin received a call from the National Forensic Service. The medical examiner had found a piece of paper lodged in Jang's throat. It had writing on it, but only 2 numbers were legible. Based on the evidence, Yoo Bin formed a theory and quickly moved to intercept the representative who was attempting to flee. The representative sped off in his car, leading Yoo Bin on a chase that ended at a senior center in the mountains. Exhausted and out of breath, the representative still denied killing anyone. Yoo Bin laid out his deduction. He and Jang had started their careers together with nothing, dreaming of villas and luxury cars. Jang became famous, the agency's cash cow, but then decided to switch agencies. The representative had accidentally discovered Jang threatening his manager. He decided to poison the manager and then leak the story to the press to ruin Jang's reputation. His plan was to continue exploiting Jang after things calmed down. However, Jang found a piece of paper with the manager's address on the representative's desk and realized what had happened. Jang was about to go to the police, but the representative hit him over the head with a helmet. Fragments of the helmet landed under the coffee table. Knowing he was in trouble, Jang swallowed the piece of paper. The representative continued to deny everything, claiming he had an alibi for the time of the manager's death. Yoo Bin continued to unravel the truth. He discovered that the representative had gone to the movie theater to scout it out. After the film started, he slipped out, leaving a double in his seat to create an alibi. During the 2-hour movie, he took a taxi to the manager's apartment. He intended to drag the manager's body inside, but, short on time, left the victim in the living room and hurried back to the cinema. As the movie was ending, Yoo Bin obtained the taxi's GPS records and located the double to confirm his story. The reason the security cameras didn't capture the representative at Jang's apartment was because he disguised himself as a delivery driver. After killing Jang with the helmet, he threw the body from the 47th floor to stage a suicide. However, the paper Jang swallowed contained the representative's DNA. He was the perpetrator of both murders. Seeing his deception exposed, the representative pulled out a knife, intending to silence Yu Bin permanently. Yu Bin reached for his gun, but it was gone. In this critical moment, Jung Ryok suddenly rushed forward and tackled Yu Bin, shielding him. It turned out that Jung Ryok, lacking evidence, had been forced to release a suspect he'd apprehended. As the suspect left, he'd offered a clue. He'd seen someone leaving the manager's apartment that night. Jung Ryok asked him to sketch the person's face. The sketch had eyes and a nose but nothing distinctive. Yet, Jung Ryok instantly recognized the representative. He immediately checked the representative's whereabouts and learned of Yu Bin's current operation. He picked up Yu Bin's gun at the foot of the mountain and arrived just in time. After a brief struggle, Jung Ryok subdued the representative and brought him back to face justice. The four-person team, under Yu Bin's leadership, had finally become less of a liability and successfully cracked the case. BEM, their kindergarten-level serious crimes unit, rallied the team to celebrate their victory at a fried chicken restaurant. There, Jung Ryok unexpectedly discovered that the restaurant owner was his former boxing coach. Furthermore, his old boxing buddy owned the gym across the street. Reunited after so long, Jung Ryok wanted to give the coach's daughter, Hyo, some pocket money. Pulling out his wallet, he nearly died of embarrassment. He only had 2 small bills. After their meal, the coach reminded everyone about a free photo event for the restaurant's first anniversary and took their first group photo. The next day, the Serious Crimes Unit received a call. The fried chicken restaurant was on fire. They rushed to the scene. The bustling restaurant from the night before was now a chaotic mess. The restaurant was closed when the fire broke out, but Hyo was still inside. Although rescued promptly, she remained unconscious. Jung Ryok rushed to the hospital to see Hyo. The coach told him that Hyo hated fried chicken but worked at the restaurant because she couldn't find another part-time job. Seeing the coach's heartbreak, Jung Ryok felt immense sympathy but could offer little beyond comfort. The fire marshal suspected faulty wiring. Yu Bin examined the plugs and found no damage, suggesting arson. The National Forensic Service determined that Hyo had a head wound and signs of a concussion, indicating she was attacked from behind. All signs pointed to arson. Analyzing the situation, Minaseo learned that the first person to call emergency services was a college student. Every morning, this student went to the boxing gym to train. On the day of the fire, he'd spotted the flames on his way to the gym, called 119, and rushed into the burning building to rescue Hyo. The restaurant had 2 doors, a front entrance and a back door leading to the kitchen. Both doors had keypads. Neither showed signs of forced entry. If it was arson, the perpetrator must have known the door codes. Jung Ryok speculated that the suspect might have entered through a window. Yu Bin dismissed this idea. The glass at the scene showed signs of thermal distortion, clearly shattered by high heat, not force. Young Hwan pointed out that only a few people knew the codes, including Hyo. He suspected Hyo might have started the fire. Jung Ryok was indignant. The coach had served the country through sports. He couldn't accuse him and his family. Yu Bin reminded Jung Ryok not to let his emotions cloud his judgment, stating that the coach was also a suspect. Yu Bin inquired about Hyo's personal information. Young Hwan reported that Hyo was a sophomore who had started helping out at the chicken restaurant last month and was currently on break from school. Tan-sik investigated the security footage from around the restaurant and spotted a suspicious individual who appeared to have entered the restaurant about 30 minutes before the fire. They couldn't identify the person yet. Yu Bin instructed Young Hwan and Tan-sik to investigate Hyo's whereabouts on the day of the fire. Jung Ryok, unable to cope with his personal feelings, couldn't focus on the investigation. He went to his junior's boxing gym to clear his head. He asked why their former coach had left the boxing team. His junior replied that the coach didn't know how to deal with people and seemed to have been fired. Jung Ryok noticed a young man practicing incorrectly and went over to correct him, only to realize it was the student who had rescued Hyo. He patted the student's shoulder in gratitude. The student, feeling uneasy, went to the locker room. Jung Ryok's junior told him that the student had a difficult life. He and his grandmother lived together, and he used to cause trouble at school every day. Then, the coach took him under his wing, teaching him boxing and giving him a job at the shop. The student's story reminded Jung Ryok of his own past. He had given up boxing because his father was ill. His coach, learning of his situation, used all his savings to help him through the tough times and encouraged him not to give up. That's how Jung Ryuk became who he was today. Meanwhile, Min-seo was questioning people near the chicken restaurant, hoping to find some clues. Young Hwan and Tan-sik went to the library to talk to Hyo's classmates. A classmate said that Hyo had attended her birthday party the night of the fire, leaving around 2 a.m. She had offered Hyo a place to stay, but Hyo wanted to return to the restaurant to study, planning to go directly to the library the next day. Jung Ryuk went to the National Forensic Service. A specialist there had recovered the contents of Hyo's phone through cloud synchronization. Reviewing Hyo's browsing history, Jung Ryuk discovered searches for self-defense items and warnings about stalking and harassment. A bad feeling crept into his heart. Based on their investigations, the team identified 4 suspects. Jung Ryuk considered Hyo's wealthy ex-boyfriend the most likely suspect. He had been stalking and harassing Hyo, and it was possible he had broken into the restaurant on the night of the fire. Yoo-bin cautioned Jung Ryuk against jumping to conclusions and told the team to analyze the other suspects. Min-seo pointed to the owner of the restaurant across the street as the second suspect. The 2 businesses had a history of disputes. Furthermore, the owner had been investigated 3 times for arson. Yoo-bin suggested that Hyo's father and the landlord were also suspects. They both had fire insurance. Hyo's father could receive 300 million won in compensation, while the landlord could receive over 1 billion won. Moreover, the landlord had purchased 4 different fire insurance policies. Jung Ryuk removed Hyo's father's picture, convinced it couldn't be his former coach. He trusted the coach's character and believed no father would harm his own daughter. Yoo-bin assigned everyone to investigate their assigned suspects. Jung Ryuk forcibly brought the ex-boyfriend to the police station. The ex-boyfriend admitted to following Hyo on the day of the incident, but claimed he lost track of her. He said he held no grudge against Hyo, but was merely displeased with her aloofness and wanted to teach her a lesson. The team verified the ex-boyfriend's alibi and confirmed he had no opportunity to commit the arson. Min-seo questioned the landlord about why he had purchased 4 insurance policies, which was unusual. The landlord, acting mysteriously, asked Min-seo to keep it confidential. He explained that he had a crush on an insurance saleswoman and bought the policies as an excuse to have dinner with her. "You have to keep this a secret," he pleaded. Tan-sik investigated the rival chicken restaurant owner, asking him about his previous arson investigations. The owner appeared aggressive, but then burst into tears like a child. Tan-sik examined a scar on the owner's head, learning he had been burned as a child and, as a result, hated fire. He even used cold water to cook noodles and hadn't eaten grilled meat in 20 years. Yoo-bin was personally investigating Hyo's father, but before he could begin, he received a call from Hu Hospital. Hyo had regained consciousness. They rushed to the hospital, only to learn from the doctor that Hyo had suffered brain damage and lost all memory of the fire. The case remained stalled. Just then, the chief showed up, furious. "You idiots, what have you done? Explain yourselves." It turned out the spoiled rich kid had filed a complaint against Jung Ryuk for assaulting him before investigating the situation thoroughly. He demanded the police department punish them. The chief was exasperated that they were still causing trouble even after being transferred. Yoo-bin returned to the fire scene. He noticed that a gold medal, previously displayed in the restaurant, was now at Hyo's house. This implied that Hyo's father might have anticipated the fire and removed the medal beforehand. Jung Ryuk disagreed with Yoo-bin's analysis, firmly believing the coach couldn't be the culprit. Seeing Jung Ryuk's unwavering bias towards the coach, Yoo-bin ordered him to temporarily suspend his involvement in the investigation. Dejected, Jung Ryuk sat alone in a restaurant, lost in thought. Suddenly, he received a text message offering information about Hyo's case. He arrived at the designated meeting place, only to be confronted by a group of masked men. He immediately recognized the rich kid's handiwork. Jung Ryuk decided on a swift resolution. He calculated how long it would take to punch each person twice and winced. Cracking his knuckles, he proceeded to lay them all out flat. The terrified rich kid, sputtering curses, tried to call for backup, but Jung Ryuk was on him in a flash, taking him down as easily as slaughtering a chicken. Afterward, Jung Ryuk learned crucial information from his boxing buddy. Hyo's father had invested in cryptocurrency and lost a significant amount of money. Jung Ryuk's heart sank. He had been trying to avoid the mounting evidence implicating the coach. He visited Hyo in the hospital and, before leaving, slipped Hyo's father a bank card to help him through the difficult time. Back at the station, he handed Yoo-bin the documents detailing the coach's cryptocurrency losses. That night, Yoo-bin stayed up reviewing the security footage from the restaurant. The following day, he brought Junsu, a part-time employee at the restaurant, to the station. Comparing the time of the fire with the time Junsu rescued Hyo, Yoo-bin realized Junsu had gotten her out in just 2 minutes. If Junsu had simply been passing by, the timing couldn't have been so precise. But no matter how he questioned him, Junsu remained silent. Yoo-bin asked Minaseo to interrogate Junsu. Minaseo empathized with Junsu, believing he had his reasons. She told him that only by telling the truth could he help Hyo's father. Hearing this, Junsu broke down, confessing everything. He and his grandmother lived together and were often bullied. Hyo's father had taught him boxing and looked after them. To Junsu, the coach was a father figure. He had vowed to do anything for him. Hyo's father hadn't said much until one day. He took Junsu home and hesitantly asked for a favor. Crippled by debt from his cryptocurrency investment, he asked Junsu to set fire to the restaurant for the insurance money. They hadn't anticipated Hyo sleeping there that night. Hyo saw Junsu and tried to call the police. Afraid of being caught, Junsu grabbed her phone. In the struggle, Hyo fell and lost consciousness. Junsu ran outside, saw the flames, and panicked, rushing back in to carry Hyo out. He was terrified afterward, but the coach assured him that staying quiet would keep them safe. Hearing this, Jung-ryok was devastated. He couldn't believe Hyo's father had orchestrated everything. At the same time, Hyo told her father she saw Junsu in the restaurant during the fire. She guessed he was involved and had feigned amnesia to hide the truth. She begged him to stay silent so they could both escape the consequences. Hyo's father was heartbroken, realizing his actions had implicated his daughter. He began to regret his initial decision. Later, Jung-ryok called Hyo's father to the boxing gym, hoping to spar like they used to. Hyo's father was distracted and kept backing away. Jung-ryok removed his gloves and repeated the words his coach had once told him. Even when cornered, there's always a chance to turn things around. Even when defeat is inevitable, you can still land one last blow. Jung-ryok confessed he actually hated boxing, finding it tiring and painful. Only his coach's encouragement had kept him going. He thanked his coach from the bottom of his heart, hoping he could withstand life's blows and become a better person. Hyo's father confessed to his crime. Junsu, tearfully bidding farewell to his grandmother, took responsibility for his mistakes. After the case concluded, everyone gathered at Young Hwan's house for a housewarming party. Young Hwan had 4 daughters. Throughout the meal, they laughed and chattered non-stop. After the meal, still sober, Jung-ryok dragged Tan-sik out for another round of drinks. Tan-sik praised Young Hwan for his patriotic contribution to the country with his 4 children. Jung-ryok corrected him, saying that wasn't the whole story. It was all because the little head wouldn't listen to the big head back in the day. Young Hwan was a shooter, his wife a table tennis player. They met when his wife accidentally hit him in the face with a ping-pong ball. Before being selected for the national team, Young Hwan asked his wife for some encouragement. Unexpectedly, that passionate night resulted in a pregnancy. Caring for his wife and child left Young Hwan no time to train, leading to his dismissal from the team. To support his family, he dedicated himself to the civil service exam. The very night he received his acceptance notification, he discovered his wife was pregnant again. After the birth of their second daughter, Young Hwan underwent a vasectomy to spare his wife further hardship. Finally, they thought they could enjoy some couple time. But 2 months later, his wife was pregnant again. The doctor explained that while the vasectomy success rate was 99.7%, his testes had an exceptional sperm production capability. Young Hwan was speechless, surprised by his own prowess. Later, while apprehending a criminal, Young Hwan suffered an injury to his groin. The doctor regretfully informed him he could no longer have children. Excellent. Finally, Young Hwan could enjoy marital bliss without worry. But soon after, his wife was pregnant yet again. The doctor couldn't explain this anomaly, deeming it a medical miracle. The entire hospital congratulated the couple on their miracle. Young Hwan and his wife were in tears, especially Young Hwan, who wanted to end it all. After hearing the story, Tan-sik imagined Young Hwan's sperm as an army with a 100% success rate. Other patrons, inspired by Young Hwan's tale, felt motivated to emulate him, striving to produce the strongest sperm and defy the impossible. Not long after, the police department received a report about a kindergarten girl who mysteriously disappeared after school. Her parents explained that her uncle usually picked her up every Thursday, but that day, he received a call saying school was dismissed late. Assuming the girl's mother would be home in time, he didn't go. Unexpectedly, someone else took the child. Min Seo and Tan-sik checked nearby traffic camera footage and found someone impersonating the uncle picking up the girl, but the perpetrator's face was completely covered. Finding the person was like searching for a needle in a haystack. With no leads, everyone sighed in frustration. However, a reporter, taking advantage of the police investigation, snuck into the station and quickly learned about the situation. The story spread online, with countless netizens criticizing the police inaction. Just then, Yoo Bin received a call from the commissioner, ordering them off the case. Headquarters was forming a special investigation team, and this agent, brimming with arrogance, commandeered their office. Jung Ryok, irritated by the agent's haughty attitude, slammed his fist into a punching bag. The headquarters team leader put his arm around Yoo Bin, and the other members smirked, relishing this perceived revenge. Young Hwan's wife, hearing that headquarters was investigating in their area, urged him to build rapport with them for a potential transfer. With 4 daughters to feed, a promotion was crucial. Yoo Bin secretly instructed her team to continue investigating. Soon, they had a lead. Young Hwan typed up their findings. He contemplated sucking up to the headquarters team leader but hesitated. Confused, he asked his daughter, who frequently visited the office, "If I wanted praise from the teacher, should I betray my friends?" His daughter honestly replied, "I look up to you, Dad. Don't disappoint me. Besides, betraying your friends is betraying your heart." Her words shamed Young Hwan and extinguished any thought of compromising their kidnapping investigation. The headquarters team, meanwhile, focused on someone with a grudge against the girl's father as the prime suspect. Yoo Bin's investigation revealed the girl's father had bullied a classmate in school, causing the classmate to be hit by a car while running away, resulting in years of disability. The classmate's older sister cared for him until his death a few months prior, after which she disappeared. Yoo Bin located the sister and dispatched Young Hwan and Jung Ryok to investigate. Young Hwan, disguised as a fumigator, entered the sister's residence and noticed a child's eating set and the locked door of one room. He grew suspicious. Just then, the sister spotted his handcuffs. She struck Young Hwan's head, and while he was incapacitated, she grabbed her niece and fled. Jung Ryok rushed in, finding Young Hwan on the floor. Young Hwan urged him to stop the sister, not to worry about him. Jung Ryok stood in front of the sister's car, blocking her escape. She accelerated, crashing into a pile of trash. Jung Ryok charged forward, attempting his signature car-lifting move. Young Hwan joined him. In his excitement, Jung Ryok accidentally ripped off the hood instead. The sister, seeing this, sped away. Young Hwan aimed his gun, but his rejection from the national team years ago had created a mental block, preventing him from shooting. Suddenly, he remembered meeting his wife, falling in love, and starting a family. His wife and children were his strength. He had to overcome this obstacle. With renewed resolve, he fired, hitting the tire. The suspect was apprehended, and the girl was rescued. The girl's father, remorseful, apologized for his past bullying. The sister, finally hearing an apology on behalf of her brother, broke down in tears. They had solved another case. Meanwhile, the headquarters team realized they had the wrong suspect. Outperformed by the local team, they were dismissed from the case. Humiliated, they quickly retreated. Yoo Bin's team had won this round. Tan-sik, the unassuming member of the team, possessed an incredibly keen sense of smell, able to identify what someone had eaten just by being near them. Yoo Bin challenged him to guess what she ate. Tan-sik sniffed her up and down, left and right, creating an almost awkward moment, but couldn't come up with an answer. Yoo Bin playfully acknowledged his talent, explaining he couldn't guess because she hadn't eaten anything. At that moment, the Violent Crimes Unit received a report of a man's body found by the roadside. They rushed to the scene. The body was bludgeoned beyond recognition. Tan-sik was heartbroken to discover the victim was a sock vendor who always gave him free socks. Back at the office, they discussed the case. Some suspected robbery, but Yu Bin disagreed. Nothing was stolen, and the brutal nature of the wounds suggested revenge. Yu Bin ordered them to canvass the area and inquire about any potential enemies the vendor might have had. The investigation yielded consistent results. Neighbors described the sock vendor as temperamental, having had disputes with many people, making it difficult to pinpoint a specific target. Yu Bin instructed them to check nearby security cameras. As they left the station, they encountered a woman being arrested. She enthusiastically greeted them. Jung Ryok, now a family man, immediately noticed Tan's 6 luxury watch, skeptical that someone like him could afford such an item. Learning the watch was worth nearly 200 million won, Jung Ryok and Young Hwan burst into laughter, assuming it was a fake. Tan Sik explained it was a gift from his grandmother, but they remained unconvinced. Determined to clear the vendor's name, Tan Sik spent the night at the vendor's stall location. Yu Bin had the team post witness appeals, seeking anyone who had seen the vendor argue with someone. Soon, a woman came to the station, recounting being harassed at a nightclub. She left to avoid further trouble, but the harasser followed her. The vendor intervened, helping her escape. She dismissed it as a minor incident, not worth reporting, never imagining it would lead to his death. As Young Hwan escorted the woman out, she mentioned Tan Sik was the grandson of the owner of Korea's largest food chain and the chosen heir. Recalling Tan Sik's story about the watch being a gift from his grandmother, Young Hwan's ears perked up. He researched online, confirming his suspicions. He'd been completely oblivious to the Keeball heir in their midst. Young Hwan's attitude towards Tan Sik did a complete 180, shifting from dismissive arrogance to fawning respect. The others thought he'd lost his mind. Reviewing the nightclub's entrance camera footage, they finally found video of the vendor's altercation. While the other man's face was unclear, Yu Bin recognized his license plate, identifying him as Hyo's wealthy ex-boyfriend. Jung Ryok and Young Hwan went to the nightclub to investigate, but were immediately turned away by the bouncers. Jung Ryok considered using force, but, intimidated by their size, decided against it. Yu Bin's warrant request was also denied. Tan Sik, using his connections, borrowed a membership card and snuck in with Minasiel. They obtained hallway camera footage, revealing the ex-boyfriend with a recently released convict. Their superiors rejected a warrant for the ex-boyfriend's house, so they targeted the ex-convict. The same imposing bouncers blocked the entrance. This time, all 4 officers went together. Jung Ryok confidently initiated a staring contest, and to his surprise, the bouncers cowered and respectfully ushered them inside after a mere 2 count. Jung Ryok located the ex-convict's private room. Before he could question him, another man approached and provoked him. Jung Ryok, enraged, threw the first punch. The man accidentally hit a light switch, plunging the room into darkness. Suddenly, Jung Ryok was surrounded by enemies. He unleashed a flurry of punches in the dark. When the lights came back on, the opponents were down, only Tan Sik standing beside Jung Ryok. The ex-convict was brought to the station. Jung Ryok showed him a picture of Hyo's ex-boyfriend and asked about his whereabouts. The ex-convict initially claimed ignorance, but under Jung Ryok's pressure, he finally revealed the truth. The next day, Jung Ryok and Young Hwan went to the golf course. Sure enough, they found the young heir sporting a flashy silver hairdo. Seeing them, the heir quickly hopped onto a shuttle bus and tried to escape. The 2 men boarded another shuttle and gave chase. The heir ditched the bus and jumped into a getaway car. He only managed to get a few steps before Yu Bin blocked him at the gate and apprehended him. The heir denied the murder, threatening to sue them if they didn't let him go. Furious, Jung Ryok lunged forward, wanting to teach the heir a lesson. Luckily, Young Hwan and the others held him back, as the heir's lawyer was present. They couldn't afford to give the opponent any leverage. Jung Ryok calmed down, but Tan Sik, disregarding the situation, rushed forward to hit the heir. Yu Bin pretended to intervene but instead moved closer to Tan Sik, telling him to grab the heir's sleeve and shake it a few times. Then, Yu Bin deliberately handcuffed Tan Sik so the heir's lawyer could see. Meanwhile, she discreetly had someone collect Tan Sik's protective hand covering and sent it to the National Forensic Service for testing to check for the fibrous material found on the victim, Minsia. They received news that the heir was about to flee the country. However, the results from the National Forensic Service hadn't arrived yet, so they couldn't arrest him. Bin led everyone to the heir's house to search for evidence related to the drugs. The K9 unit was deployed, but Bin remembered that Tan's sixth sense of smell was even sharper than a dog's. She suggested he try as well. Tan-sik and the police dogs began their search, sniffing room by room, but found nothing suspicious. Seeing the mocking glances from the others, the team leader smiled, suggesting that Tan-sik must be overexcited. Tan-sik closed his eyes, held his breath, and concentrated on recalling the scents he had just encountered. Opening his eyes, he immediately rushed into the bathroom and found the evidence inside a toiletries box. Bin rewarded him with a piece of tofu, just like one would reward a dog, causing the K9s to look on with a mixture of admiration and envy. On their way back to the police station, Bin received a call from the National Forensic Service. They reported that the fibers found on Tan-sik's hand were identical to those found on the victim, confirming the heir as the murderer. They immediately headed to the airport to make the arrest. However, on the way, their car got a flat tire. Tan-sik told everyone to wait a few minutes and quickly disappeared. Jung-ryok was just criticizing Tan-sik for being useless when he saw him reappear driving a stylish sports car. After everyone got in, Tan-sik sped off like lightning, successfully forcing the heir's car to stop. The heir abandoned his car and ran. Tan-sik quickly gave chase. The others tried to help but fumbled with the car doors, unable to open them. Tan-sik, having never fought anyone before, was quickly knocked to the ground. Just as the heir was about to escape, Tan-sik remembered his father's encouragement, the team leader's trust, and the wrongfully accused man waiting for him to clear his name. A surge of strength propelled Tan-sik to his feet. He single-handedly apprehended the culprit. In this moment, he finally found his self-worth. Min-seo didn't hesitate to run into the men's restroom to catch a criminal. She had trash thrown at her but remained undeterred. However, turning around, she saw her ex-boyfriend dealing with his own emotional turmoil. Embarrassed, she didn't know where to hide her face. They met at a cafe to talk. Her ex-boyfriend boasted about his upcoming marriage and asked if Min-seo had a new boyfriend. To save face, she lied, claiming she was dating someone, also a police officer. At the same time, Jung Hwan was also facing romantic woes. A foreign woman, who had previously visited the police station as a witness, still harbored feelings for him and wanted to ask him out. Jung-ryok hoped the woman would remember his kindness and warmth, but he wasn't interested in a romantic relationship. Before leaving, Jung-ryok draped his scarf around the woman, reminding her that it was cold outside and she should stay warm. Unwittingly, this gesture only made him more attractive. The police received a report about a woman who met her boyfriend through a dating app. Despite being in an online relationship for over a year, they had never met in person. Yet, the woman had transferred 4 billion won to him. Suddenly, he disappeared. When she went to the address he had given her, she discovered it belonged to someone else. Bin assigned this typical romance scam case to Min-seo and asked for the assistance of the resident dating expert, Jung-ryok. The two worked overtime. After work, they went out for drinks and shared their own complicated love stories. Min-seo recounted how her ex-boyfriend was a low-ranking police officer. They had a sweet and happy relationship. But after he passed the civil service exam, he immediately broke up with her. Just 2 days later, Min-seo saw him with a wealthy young woman, realizing she had been cheated on for a while. Next, Jung-ryok shared his story. While pursuing a criminal, he met a woman and fell in love at first sight. To impress her, he actively participated in many activities she enjoyed. Soon, they started dating. Min-seo had heard bits and pieces of Jung-ryok's love story before and was curious why it didn't work out. However, Jung-ryok didn't want to elaborate, and the topic of love ended there. Then, they switched to discussing the case. Min-seo analyzed that the scam was likely orchestrated by a group. Based on the withdrawal records, they identified 3 atoms. Bin instructed them to stake out these locations. Jung-ryok and Tan-sik disguised themselves as restaurant staff, handing out flyers on the street. Jung Hwan dressed as a missionary, while Min-seo posed as a street vendor. However, their busy day yielded no clues. The 3 men returned to the police station first, followed by Min-seo. To investigate the scam, Min-seo registered on the dating site. She was quickly contacted by someone. After 2 days of chatting, the person finally revealed their intentions, asking Min Siu for a loan of 80 million won. Min Siu agreed immediately but insisted on meeting in person for the transaction. Min Siu nervously waited for the person to appear, while Jung Ryok's team observed from a distance. A while later, a man approached Min Siu, claiming he had been asked by a friend to pick up the money. Min Siu hadn't anticipated such caution. The man called the person who hired him to confirm the details. Suddenly, the man snatched Min Siu's bag. She fought back but fell. Seeing handcuffs fall out of her bag, the man realized he'd been set up and ran. Min Siu alerted her team to apprehend him. The three men chased him so hard they lost their shoes. Fortunately, Min Siu was quick and managed to subdue him. Upon investigation, they discovered the man was just a hired runner and completely unaware of the real culprit's identity. Despite their efforts, they failed to catch the mastermind and inadvertently alerted the entire group to their investigation. The other party had deleted their account. Everyone analyzed the situation. Each time the criminals used different phone numbers to register verification accounts, a large number of identification cards were needed. Now, they needed to investigate in this direction. Min Seo and Jung Ryok immediately set off. On the way, Min Seo again asked about Jung Ryok's love life and his first love. Why did it end so abruptly and inexplicably? Jung Ryok recalled that year. They had pledged their love to each other, refusing to marry anyone else. But they were blocked by his girlfriend's parents, simply because her mother had consulted a fortune teller. The fortune teller said that if they married, the girl would be dragged down by Jung Ryok and end up begging. His girlfriend's mother believed the fortune teller and forced them to break up. Even though Jung Ryok knelt for a whole day and night, he couldn't sway her. After the breakup, he was depressed and shut himself in his house for a long time. By the time he came out, the once cheerful and energetic man had become melancholic and profound. His charm attracted women of all ages. Min Seo was indignant on Jung Ryok's behalf. "You're a police officer, how could you end up a beggar?" But moments later, they disguised themselves as beggars. They guessed that the criminals were likely using the IDs of homeless people to register phone numbers. Wanting to enter the tiger's den themselves to lure the enemy to bite, they unexpectedly ran into Jung Ryok's first love as soon as they finished their disguises. After the breakup, his first love still couldn't forget him. Seeing Jung Ryok truly turned into a beggar, she thought to herself that she could finally let go. Jung Ryok was about to explain, but two telecom employees nearby had identified them as their targets. At this crucial moment, Jung Ryok couldn't reveal his identity and could only sadly bid farewell to his former lover and follow the two employees to their lair. They confirmed that these people specialized in reselling mobile phone numbers. Jung Ryok showed no mercy, quickly subduing them. At this moment, the leader of the group walked in. "Who are you? Do you know martial arts?" Very quickly, they found the scammers' information. In this instance, the scammers were posing as clinic owners, defrauding people through marriage, lying that the clinic had closed down, and planning to swindle money from the father of the bride. All team members were mobilized, exposing the scammers' true faces right at the wedding, resolving the case perfectly. As they were about to leave, they happened to run into Min Seo's ex-boyfriend holding his wedding reception in the next room. The ex-boyfriend stared at the four men and asked, "Who is Min Seo dating?" The four men looked at each other blankly, confused. Min Seo awkwardly congratulated her ex-boyfriend on his marriage. The ex-boyfriend politely invited them to stay for the meal. Min Seo immediately declined, but the four men, all having the free food tastes better mentality, readily accepted. Tan-sik ran into Min Seo's ex-boyfriend in the restroom and lied, claiming he was the one dating Min Seo. Young Hwan, who was making a phone call outside, also pulled Min Seo's ex-boyfriend aside, claiming ownership and stating that he was Min Seo's boyfriend. He warned, "Don't try to show off in front of Min Seo anymore." The bewildered ex-boyfriend then ran into Jeong Hwan. Young Hwan aggressively warned him, "I am Min Seo's man. Don't contact her again." Just how many people was she dating? The next day, there was a new case. A famous painting worth 10 billion won had been stolen. Yu Bin led the team members to investigate. Through their investigation, they learned that the owner of the painting had a special collection room in their house. Only the couple knew the password. Their daughter and son-in-law didn't usually live with them and had no interest in paintings. Jung Ryok arrived at the collection room. Finding no signs of forced entry, he began to speculate, mimicking Yu Bin's usual deductive style. After a long period of contemplation, Jung Ryok concluded the painting had been stolen by a pigeon. A specially trained pigeon, he reasoned, had flown in through the window and snatched the artwork. Jung Hwan thought Jung Ryok had completely lost it. He filmed Jung Ryok imitating the pigeon's flight, intending to save the video for future mockery. Jung Ryok, mortified at the prospect of this embarrassing footage spreading, chased Jung Hwan, demanding he delete the video. In their struggle, they accidentally knocked over a vase. Seeing the shattered vase, both men were terrified. Jung Ryok insisted they split the cost, but Jung Hwan adamantly refused to take any responsibility, claiming he had nothing to do with it. Just then, Yu Bin and the painting's owner entered the room. The owner exclaimed that the vase was worth 20 million won and told Jung Ryok he'd have to pay for it. Jung Ryok, panicked and weak-kneed, pleaded with Jung Hwan to share the cost. Otherwise, he insisted, he'd have to sell everything he owned and still wouldn't be able to afford it. Yu Bin, confused by their argument, noticed a clump of fur amidst the broken shards of the vase. Before he could examine it closely, a gust of wind blew it away. Yu Bin quickly told everyone to grab the fur. Tan Sik and Jung Hwan both fell flat on their faces trying to catch it, but Yu Bin managed to snag the fluff. He instructed Tan Sik to take it for testing. The results quickly came back: dog fur. The breed matched the dog owned by the homeowner's son-in-law. The test also revealed a crucial piece of information: the broken vase was a fake. Jung Ryok, who had been preparing for financial ruin, was overjoyed. He burst into tears, hugging Jung Hwan while laughing and crying. To confirm the fur belonged to the same dog, Yu Bin told Tan Sik and Jung Hwan to collect a sample from the son-in-law's pet. Tan Sik approached the son-in-law, feigning an intense interest in dogs, while Jung Hwan directed the operation from inside their vehicle. The test confirmed the fur in the vase belonged to that dog. With sufficient evidence, the son-in-law was identified as the thief. He confessed to swapping the real vase with a fake and selling the original when he was short on money. However, he insisted that he only took less valuable items and would never dare steal something as expensive as the painting. Yu Bin concluded that someone else must have stolen the painting. He instructed the team to investigate any suspicious individuals who had recently been in the homeowner's house. They quickly identified the air conditioner repairman as a potential suspect. He had a prior record for theft. Furthermore, someone reported hearing a buzzing sound, like wasps, around the building recently. Yu Bin suspected it wasn't wasps, but the sound of a drone. Upon investigating the repairman's bank account, they discovered he was an avid drone enthusiast. Yu Bin deduced that he must have hatched his plan while repairing the air conditioner. He had likely used his drone to record the homeowner's wife entering the security code for the collection room and then memorize the code. Later, while replacing an air filter, he used the code to steal the painting. Yu Bin ordered the repairman to be brought in for questioning. He confessed to the theft, but claimed he no longer had the painting, as it had been stolen from him. He had approached a gallery manager to sell the painting. The manager, recognizing it as stolen property, had taken it for himself. Min Seo researched the manager and discovered he had a history of illegal activity. 4 years prior, he had been investigated for suspected trafficking in cultural artifacts. Yu Bin cautioned against a hasty approach, fearing it might tip off the manager and cause him to hide the painting. They needed a more subtle tactic. He then contacted an art appraiser who knew the manager. This appraiser frequently authenticated ancient artworks at the gallery and held considerable influence in the art world. Yu Bin and Min Seo went to the Grandmaster's house to ask him to introduce them to a manager. The Grandmaster immediately refused, calling for his attendant to see them out. "Please leave. Otherwise, I will have to resort to force." Yu Bin, not wanting to cause trouble, urged Min Seo to leave. Unexpectedly, the situation suddenly changed. Upon hearing Min Seo's last name, the Grandmaster inquired about her father. It turned out that the Grandmaster and Min Seo's father were acquainted. As a favor to his acquaintance's daughter, the Grandmaster agreed to give them the green light and introduce them to the manager. Yu Bin decided that he and Min Seo would disguise themselves as Korean art brokers. Jung Ryok would pose as an overseas Korean tourist interested in purchasing artwork. Jung and Tan Sik would provide backup from the outside. Thanks to Min Seo's amateur makeup skills, the three quickly transformed their appearances and successfully met with the manager. Meanwhile, Young Hwan found a Japanese tutor. If the other party spoke Japanese, the tutor would instantly translate and coach Jung Ryok on how to respond appropriately. The manager greeted Jung Ryok in Japanese. "It's a pleasure to meet you as well." The manager found Jung Ryok's Japanese a bit strange. Min Seo immediately explained that he had a touch of the flu, hence the slight slurring. The manager then noticed Yu Bin standing beside them silently, sweating profusely. Min Seo quickly provided another explanation. He has hyperhidrosis. He's always hot and sweats a lot. Getting down to business, Tan Sik expressed their desire to see the painting the manager had recently acquired. The manager cautiously asked how they knew about this. Min Seo mentioned the Grandmaster's name. Reassured, the manager instructed someone to bring out the painting for verification. This painting was indeed the stolen one. Tired of the charade, Yu Bin and Jung Ryok immediately revealed their identities. The startled manager fled. Outside, he called his driver for a pickup. The car arrived promptly, but upon entering, he realized he had walked into a trap. The driver wasn't his chauffeur but Young Hwan and Tan Sik. The Major Crimes Unit scored another victory. The director wanted to promote Yu Bin and transfer him to headquarters. Yu Bin declined, requesting only a bonus for his team members. The four received their reward. To express their excitement, each loudly voiced their gratitude. Finally, it was Tan Sik's turn. He yelled at the top of his lungs, "Thank you, wife." Young Hwan's wife, to earn extra money to support their family, created an account dedicated to filming videos of children eating. But after several days of filming, the viewership remained low, and she gradually lost confidence. That day, Young Hwan happened to see his daughter playing with her noodles while eating. He quickly filmed this amusing scene. His wife reminded him that he was going to be late for work, but he ignored her. At the police station, Young Hwan stealthily crawled on the floor, intending to slip into his seat unnoticed. However, he was spotted the moment he sat down. Yu Bin organized a meeting to address an online gambling case. Initially, the organizers intentionally let players win money. Once the players' greed was aroused, they set traps, causing them to accumulate massive debts. If the players couldn't pay, they were harassed and intimidated by thugs. Without repayment, they faced dire consequences. Now, numerous victims had emerged. Yu Bin instructed everyone to register as members to understand the game's rules and begin investigating the receiving account. As a result, the four became increasingly engrossed in the game, almost falling prey to the organizers' scheme. Having identified the receiving account, Yu Bin decided to stake out and apprehend the cashier. The four wanted to split into two groups, but Yu Bin announced that he would also participate in the operation this time. On their first day, Yu Bin and Young were assigned to a separate stakeout with the captain. Feeling both awkward and embarrassed, Young Hwan struggled to find topics of conversation. Seeing his discomfort, Yu Bin reassured him, "Don't force it. I'm human too. I won't bite." But Young Hwan still furtively rolled his eyes. Confined in such a small space, he couldn't relax. The next day, it was Tan Sik and the captain's turn. Thoughtful Tan Sik had prepared pillows, snacks, and hair clips. Food, entertainment, relaxation, he had it all. Yu Bin reminded him, "You two are here to catch criminals, not to have a picnic." Tan Sik confessed that he always felt like he wasn't contributing much. That's why he prepared for every contingency. Yu Bin gave him a protective bell. "This charm will protect you from danger and turn bad luck into good. You'll definitely achieve great things if you utilize your strengths more." Tan Sik was moved to tears, determined to give his all for the captain. The following day was Jung Ryok and Yu Bin's turn. Jung Ryok was also somewhat uncomfortable, but he wasn't as patient as Young Hwan. Just as he was about to complain, Yu Bin spoke first. Yu Bin praised Jung Ryok's courage. Jung Ryok is like the big brother of the group, always looking after his juniors. "I really admire that about you." Jung Ryok puffed up with pride at the compliment. Just then, he needed to step out to take care of some personal business. Unexpectedly, Yu Bin also needed to use the restroom. They argued over who would go first. Normally in this situation, we'd play rock, paper, scissors. But I'm the captain. You just said I'm like the big brother. In work, We still need to follow the hierarchy. I'll be right back." On the final day, Minaseo and Yubin were on watch. Minaseo slept with her mouth open, completely losing track of time. When she finally woke up, she groggily drank Yubin's coffee by mistake. Yubin was used to her quirks, but strangely, he never felt bored around her. Just then, Yubin received a message. Someone had just withdrawn money from the account they were monitoring. They looked up, and the person who made the withdrawal was walking out of the bank. Confirming the person's identity, they immediately moved in to apprehend them. Tan-sik, waiting outside, tackled the suspect. Unexpectedly, the suspect turned out to be his old classmate. Brought back to the police station, the suspect confessed he was just a low-level member of the gang. The leader was someone else. Everyone called the leader Lawyer Yoon, but he had never met him. Yubin questioned the suspect about where the money was stashed after withdrawal. Under the pressure of the police, he confessed the money was hidden on a farm. After some investigation, Yubin located the marked spot. He ordered Jung Ryok to start digging. Jung Ryok dug for a long time, eventually finding the money near the hole. They brought the money back to the police station as bait to lure Lawyer Yoon out. Yubin decided to take the initiative, forming a gang called the Eastern Gang to play the role of gangsters. The five quickly transformed, adopting fierce expressions. People on the street gave them a wide berth. Children cried at the sight of them. Yubin specifically rented an office as the gang's headquarters, hoping Lawyer Yoon would seek them out. He also borrowed luxury cars and expensive watches, posting pictures of his supposed wealth on social media, wanting to make the Eastern Gang famous in the shortest time possible. But days passed, and Lawyer Yoon remained elusive. Just as everyone was getting discouraged, there was a breakthrough. A gang alliance meeting was announced. Gangs of all sizes and types were invited to participate. Yubin decided to seize this opportunity to infiltrate and gather information about Lawyer Yoon. At the meeting, Yubin took the stage, introducing himself as the leader of a newly formed gang. The four others were sweating bullets, afraid he would blow their cover. Unexpectedly, Yubin exuded a boss-like aura, and no one suspected he was a cop. After making their appearance, they split up to inquire about Lawyer Yoon. After some subtle probing, Yubin obtained Lawyer Yoon's social media account. Back at headquarters, he immediately sent a private message to Lawyer Yoon, expressing his desire to become an agent for their gambling operations. However, for several days, Lawyer Yoon didn't respond. Just as everyone was losing confidence, Lawyer Yoon suddenly appeared to test their sincerity in joining the team. Lawyer Yoon presented a debt note worth 10 billion won and instructed them to collect the debt. Yubin readily agreed, then set off with the gang members to collect. The debtors were a ruthless and violent gang, hardened criminals unfazed by threats. On Yubin's command, the five charged in, only to be swiftly and soundly defeated. After successfully collecting the debt despite the initial setback, Yubin contacted Lawyer Yoon. No longer wary, Lawyer Yoon provided an address and told them to come discuss the partnership. Upon arrival, they were surprised to find it was a classroom filled with young people operating computers. Just as they thought they'd come to the wrong place, Lawyer Yoon appeared. Lawyer Yoon instructed one of the young people to show Yubin the gambling software and explain how they manipulated the games. This confirmed that these individuals were the ones behind the rigged gambling operations. Yubin revealed his true identity and arrested the entire group. This operation effectively dismantled both the gambling ring and the violent gang, filling the police station with suspects. Each team member was assigned a detainee to interrogate using their newly established personas. Jung Ryok was dubbed Wild Heart, Young Hwan the Cold-Blooded Sniper, Min Seo the Gorgeous Fear, Tan-sik the Flabby Prince, and Yubin the Shadow King. As the five ate together, Yubin got up to answer a call, accidentally dropping his wallet. The other four picked it up and found a photo of Yubin and his girlfriend. Rumors circulated that he had been preparing to marry her in America, leaving everyone puzzled as to why he suddenly left for a remote violent crimes unit in Korea. The four started brainstorming reasons for Yubin's return. Jung Ryuk, letting his imagination run wild, suggested Yubin loved a serial killer and, wanting to prevent her from further crimes, returned to Korea. "Don't go, Yubin, please come back to me." Young Hwan guessed Yubin had a love triangle, falling for his best friend's girlfriend and returning to Korea in shame after being discovered. Tan-sik concocted an even more elaborate scenario. Yoo-bin and his girlfriend married in America but were targeted by a gang seeking revenge. His girlfriend took a bullet for him and died, prompting Yoo-bin to go on a rampage, killing the entire gang, only to be shot by his best friend, who revealed himself as the gang's boss. Their fantastical theories escalated until Yoo-bin returned, silencing them. The next day, the Violent Crimes Unit received a report of a woman's body found on a hillside by a morning jogger. The team went to investigate the scene and quickly identified the victim as an art student from a women's university. Yoo-bin tasked Jung Ryuk and Tan-sik with going to the university to investigate the victim's background. Young Hwan and Min Seo were sent to the victim's apartment to search for clues. They discovered the bar where the victim worked before her death. Furthermore, they found something suspicious. The victim's family had a low income, yet she was renting a high-end apartment. Meanwhile, at the university, Jung Ryuk interviewed the victim's classmates. They all described her as quiet and reserved, with no one noticing anything unusual. Suddenly, Jung Ryuk was struck by a bout of stomach pain, resulting in a loud fart. Everyone present, except Tan-sik, were female students. Mortified, Jung Ryuk didn't know where to hide. Tan-sik quickly covered for him, claiming it was the sound of a chair scraping. Just as he finished speaking, Jung Ryuk let out another fart. Fearing an accident, he clutched his stomach and ran towards the restroom. But upon reaching the door, he saw a long-haired woman exiting the women's restroom. Jung Ryuk sensed something was off. Taking a closer look, he immediately realized it wasn't a woman, but a man disguised as one. He gave chase, leaping forward with a powerful kick, subduing the suspect. Noticing filming equipment in the darkness, he discovered the culprit was a pervert who had entered the women's restroom to film secretly. After calling for female students to surround the pervert, Jung Ryuk quickly rushed into the restroom to finally relieve himself. Yoo-bin arrived at the National Forensic Service to review the autopsy results. The medical examiner informed him that the victim had been injected with a general anesthetic called anini and then suffocated. Based on marks on the victim's face, it was suspected the perpetrator was left-handed. After reviewing the investigation, Yoo-bin was devastated because the victim's death was identical to his girlfriend's. Years ago, while in Korea, he and his girlfriend had fallen in love at first sight, started a relationship, and moved to the US together. The day before her death, he had given her a necklace. That morning, they had parted ways affectionately, never expecting to be separated by death that evening. The medical examiner told Yoo-bin that his girlfriend had clutched the necklace he gave her in her hand when she died. He recalled something his girlfriend had said when he gave her the gift, but he hadn't understood its meaning at the time. Now, he wondered if her clutching the necklace was a clue. Flipping through a sign language book at home, he discovered that the pendant's shape was identical to a sign in the book. He analyzed all of his girlfriend's friends and finally identified a veterinary orthopedic technician named Hang Mo as a suspect. Determined to find the killer, he decided to return to Korea and join the Major Crimes Unit. Young Hwan and Min Seo visited the bar where the victim had worked part-time and received a crucial piece of information from the bartender. A customer named Choi Young-soo had been stalking the victim. The victim's call log showed that Choi Young-soo had repeatedly called and texted her. Yoo-bin instructed the team to track down Choi Young-soo. The director assigned members of headquarters, including Yoo-bin's classmate, Professor Shin, to work on the case with him. Professor Shin suspected Hang Mo was responsible for the deaths of both the university student and Yoo-bin's girlfriend. Yoo-bin shared this suspicion but wasn't certain. Professor Shin examined the victim's call log and discovered something suspicious. The victim frequently rejected calls from a specific number, and even when she answered, the calls never lasted longer than 20 seconds. The number was registered to a man who had disappeared 50 years ago, but when Professor Shin called the number, he heard a familiar voice, Hang Mo's. Furthermore, the location data placed the number within the building where Hang Mo lived. Based on this evidence, Professor Shin again suspected Hang Mo was the perpetrator. Yoo-bin advised him not to jump to conclusions, emphasizing the need for more concrete evidence. Later, Yoo-bin received news that something had happened with Young Hwan. While at the bank applying for a loan, Young Hwan had accidentally apprehended a phone scammer. Photos of his heroic act were posted online, garnering praise from numerous netizens. Yu Bin commended him for his bravery and resourcefulness, suggesting this accomplishment could lead to a promotion. Young Hwan was quite proud. Jung Ryok felt this was unfair. He believed that based on experience and ability, he deserved the promotion first. He mocked Young Hwan, accusing him of sucking up to get ahead. The two argued. Yu Bin intervened, asking them to apologize to each other to ease the tension. "I apologize," Young Hwan said. Jung Ryok reluctantly followed suit. "I apologize," in front of Yu Bin. Although they appeared reconciled, they secretly harbored resentment. Jung Ryok was jealous of Young Hwan's arrest of the scammer, an act that inadvertently put them on the radar of the scammer's gang. To get revenge, they searched for information on him, hacked his phone, and waited for the right moment to strike against Young and Tan-sik. Tracking down CHSU, they unexpectedly discovered he was a gambling addict. They burst into a bustling casino. Thinking quickly, they grabbed some food and pretended to be deliverymen. Their ruse was quickly exposed. The casino boss claimed they hadn't ordered anything. Left with no other choice, Jung Ryok revealed their identities and told Tan-sik to call for backup. However, the communication lines inside the casino had been cut. Surrounded, they fought desperately until a gunshot rang out. Young Hwan had shot the boss in the leg, bringing the fight to a halt. Yu Bin believed Young Hwan wouldn't have fired without reason, but headquarters wouldn't listen. Citing improper use of force, they suspended Young Hwan for a month. Tan-sik sought out Yu Bin and confessed the truth. Young Hwan had fired because of him. During the brawl, Tan-sik's gun had fallen out. The casino boss picked it up and pointed it at Tan-sik. In that critical moment, Young Hwan fired a warning shot to stop everyone. However, the casino boss then grabbed a gambler and used him as a hostage. Young Hwan shot the boss in the leg and told Tan-sik to quickly retrieve his weapon. After recounting the events, Tan-sik said he accepted any punishment. Yu Bin informed him that losing his weapon carried only one penalty: dismissal. Thanks to Young Hwan, he hadn't lost it, so he wouldn't be punished. He told Tan-sik to go back to work. With Young Hwan's situation resolved, his wife received a call from scammers. They claimed to be from a police support association, falsely stating that Young Hwan had applied for an interest-free loan and demanding an immediate transfer. Believing them, his wife transferred all 5 billion won. At the same time, Young Hwan received a call from someone claiming to be a temple abbot. He went to the temple but was ambushed on the way. Stabbed multiple times, he was rushed to the hospital. The surgery was successful, and he was out of immediate danger, but due to significant blood loss, he remained unconscious. Yu Bin and his colleagues were both relieved and worried, especially Jung Ryok. He regretted arguing with Young Hwan, realizing they had nearly been parted by death. He suspected the scammer gang was responsible and vowed to catch them and avenge Young Hwan. Meanwhile, Professor Shin acted independently, capturing Hang Mo and revealing the murder on a television program. The director instructed Yu Bin to use Professor Shin's investigation results as the standard. With Hang Mo apprehended, the cases of the female student and Yu Bin's girlfriend could be closed. Yu Bin just needed to find out who harmed Dung D. letter 1EFU. Still suspicious, Yu Bin visited Hang Mo, who lost control, shouting, "I didn't kill anyone." Yu Bin returned to the female student's apartment. After a careful examination, he noticed ketchup stains on the cat's scratching post. He immediately requested testing from the National Forensic Service. A somber silence fell over Young Hwan and the entire police station. To help Young Hwan's family, Minaseo took the initiative to care for his 4 children. Tan-sik learned that Young Hwan's family had lost all their savings. To help his colleague, he returned home and knelt before his grandmother, agreeing to give up his police career and return to being her heir, asking only for some money. His grandmother demanded he tell her the truth before she would consider his request. Jung Ryok located the fraud ring's hideout. He single-handedly fought his way from the 1st floor to the 3rd, challenging the gang leader, a former boxer. In a flash, Jung Ryok was knocked down. As his eyes closed, he remembered Young Hwan. Once, he and Young Hwan had searched a river for a reported lost diamond ring. He felt like he was searching for a needle in a haystack, but Young Hwan refused to give up, searching from dawn till dusk. The moment they found the necklace, presumably, it was a necklace, not a ring, Young Hwan hugged him, laughing and demanding he buy him a meal. Remembering this, Jung Ryuk opened his eyes, sat up, and ate the food on the table. Then, he stood and challenged the gang leader to another round. This time, he fought with all his might, targeting his opponent's weaknesses. He quickly defeated him. He asked if they had harmed Jung Hwan. The gang leader frantically pleaded that they had only called Jung Hwan's wife to extort money and hadn't laid a finger on him. Despite his seeming sincerity, before leaving, Jung Ryuk demanded the immediate return of the money. Yu Bin went to the temple Jung Hwan had visited. The head monk said Jung Hwan had checked the security footage and seemed to have found what he was looking for. Yu Bin asked to see the footage Jung Hwan had viewed. The monk explained that the temple had been robbed afterward and all related materials were gone. Yu Bin then went to the location where Jung Hwan was attacked. He discovered Jung Hwan's daughter's toy gun and a toy bullet lodged into the first letter of a fire safety sign across the street. He deduced that after being cornered, Jung Hwan had left them a clue, attempting to shoot the toy gun at that letter. Tan Sik arrived at the police station in plain clothes, turning in his uniform and badge. Minaseo and Jung Ryuk were confused. At that moment, Yu Bin walked in. Minaseo immediately told Yu Bin that the fraud ring had been busted and Jung Hwan's family's money had been returned. Hearing this, Tan Sik quickly retracted his resignation, acting as if nothing had happened. Yu Bin informed everyone that the person who killed the female student and harmed Jung Hwan was the same individual. They had to act immediately. Soon after, Minaseo coincidentally ran into Professor Shin. Knowing she was headed to the train station, he offered her a ride. Minaseo chatted with Professor Shin, mentioning that Yu Bin believed the culprit was someone else. Then, she brought out the hard drive she found in Jung Hwan's pocket, explaining it had been damaged by the rain. Yu Bin had asked her to get it repaired. Upon hearing this, Professor Shin enthusiastically offered Minaseo a drink. After drinking it, she suddenly felt drowsy and her consciousness began to fade. She hadn't been part of the plan originally, but things had become more complicated. Ominously, Professor Shin drove Minaseo into the mountains and covered her nose and mouth with a handkerchief, intending to silence her. Just then, Minaseo suddenly opened her eyes. It turned out she had switched the drinks in the car and had only consumed her own prepared beverage. The setup had begun when Yu Bin declared they needed to take action. Yu Bin recounted the story of his girlfriend's accident in America and the necklace she was holding, a symbol of friendship. But he was certain the culprit wasn't Hang Mo. The killer had the unconscious habit of using their left hand, indicating someone left-handed who had been forced to switch. Hang Mo wasn't. He had tossed an apple as a test, and Professor Shin instinctively reached out with his left hand to catch it. Furthermore, the clue Jung Hwan left also contained the character Su. Professor Shin's full name was Su Yu. Jung Hwan had likely seen Professor Shin's car in the temple's security footage and retrieved the video. The head monk confirmed that before leaving, Jung Hwan had spoken on the phone with someone he called Professor. Putting it all together, Yu Bin suspected Professor Shin was the culprit. He had noticed a ketchup stain on the cat's jumping platform at the female student's house, but hadn't found any DNA. He needed to confirm whether Professor Shin had any cat scratches. The task was assigned to Tan Sik. Meanwhile, Jung Ryuk snuck into Professor Shin's house. Yu Bin suspected that Professor Shin definitely had a place where he kept the victim's belongings. Tan Sik and Professor Shin ended up in the same bathhouse. Tan Sik clearly saw a scratch on Professor Shin's arm. Jung Ryuk successfully infiltrated Professor Shin's house. Relying on his intuition, he found the murdered student's jewelry. Before leaving, he noticed 2 suspicious drink cartons by the door. Sure enough, he found 2 packets of powder inside them. For the final step, Minaseo put on an act in front of Professor Shin, pretending to have evidence that Jung Hwan had found, luring Professor Shin to attack her. Minaseo revealed their entire plan, and just as Professor Shin was about to strike, she pepper-sprayed him. Then, she got out of the car and ran, leading Professor Shin into their team's ambush. Yu Bin's group was waiting there and immediately surrounded Professor Shin. Professor Shin pointed his gun at Yu Bin, but Yu Bin didn't give him a chance to act. A large net fell, capturing him. Professor Shin was arrested and brought to justice. Yu Bin questioned why he did it. Professor Shin said he couldn't accept seeing Yu Bin being better than him, and since he couldn't compete, he wanted to destroy everything Yu Bin had. After murdering Yu Bin's girlfriend, he tried everything to make Yu Bin think Hang Mo was the culprit. His plan was flawless, but unfortunately, Young Hwan ruined everything. Young Hwan found his license plate number and called him to ask if he had been to the mountains. He asked to meet and talk. Then, while Jung Ryok wasn't paying attention, he pulled a knife on him. Unexpectedly, Young Hwan was incredibly lucky and survived. Yu Bin told Professor Shin that ever since his girlfriend used her necklace to allude to a friend, he had suspected Professor Shin, because Professor Shin was his only friend. It's a shame, now I have no friends left. Thanks to you, I have new friends now. In fact, I have 4. Young Hwan was discharged from the hospital, and the Major Crimes Unit was commended. Yu Bin treated everyone to a meal. After dinner, Yu Bin announced 2 things. The new building project was complete, and everyone could move into the new building to work. The second was that he was being transferred to headquarters. They were extremely sorry to see him go. Minicio, on behalf of everyone, gave him a photo of their first mission together, as if to say they would always be there for him. A year later, the director asked Yu Bin to form an investigative team, with Yu Bin having full authority to choose the members. Yu Bin requested a major crimes unit. Do you have a particularly formidable major crimes unit in mind? I have one in mind that's both formidable and very attractive. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching. See you in the next movie.